Welcome to my first devlog. I'm 26 and I've been making casual games for years. Over those years, I made a few games and lots of unfinished projects. I'll put some of them as examples in the background. I've always worked in 2D and mostly pixel art, starting with Flash games when I was younger and more recently creating small casual mobile games. But now I want to try something new and make my first 3D game. So learning how to model, make UV maps, rig and animate will be a big challenge for me. I didn't intend on making a devlog at all for this project, so this is more of an introduction and catch-up type devlog. I'll go more in-depth as to what my game idea actually is in a later video. As you can see, a lot of the games in the background are extremely basic, repetitive and casual games. I want to move away from this and work on a polished long-term project. So I started out on day one by looking up a couple of tutorials. Unfortunately, a lot of them were outdated for the version of Blender I'm using, so I kind of had to ask around and wing it. First, I imported an image of a clownfish to use as a template, and then traced around it to make the basic shape. After lots of trial and error, I managed to get it 3D and began rounding the edges. I asked my friends for some feedback on the early model, and they told me it looked more like a galleon or a sailboat, so that needed fixed. Today I realised I know nothing of clownfish anatomy. I'd done the bottom fins completely wrong, so I had to redo those. And I somehow caused a rift in the neck of the clownfish that needed closed. Once I'd sealed the rift, I had a finished clownfish model I was surprisingly proud of. So I spent a lot of Wednesday researching how to texture in Blender. After blindlessly colouring in my fish orange, I realised I'd done it completely wrong and should be UV mapping it instead. After some further googling, I realised this was a lot easier than I first thought, and had my clownfish coloured correctly within 10 minutes. I also played about with exporting from Blender and importing into Unity, and made a very basic back and forth movement script to see how my fish would look in Engine. After browsing the internet for what felt like days, I realised I was back to square one, and had no idea what I was doing within Blender. I built a makeshift skeleton that did nothing when moved, which was not ideal. I messaged a friend of mine and he told me how to fix the issue. It turns out that I hadn't connected my bones to the mesh. This fixed my issue and I can now wiggle my fish. Animating has always been a struggle for me. Even in 2D pixel art, I somehow always manage to make it so much harder than it has to be. After spending around 3 hours struggling to make a keyframe, I finally realised what I'd been doing wrong. It then took me 3 minutes to make a basic swimming animation. Now that I had my first animation and model already, I tried to export it. I struggled to get Unity to import the animation correctly for about half an hour, and then figured out my mistake and got it working perfectly. So now it was time for my favourite part, programming. I cracked open my notebook and began sketching down ideas for how I wanted the fish to move around the tank, starting very basic with nodes the fish could travel between at random by using cubes. These cubes will later be replaced by calculating the size of the current tank and selecting random positions, so that the fish can swim freely around. The size of the fish will also be taken into account when selecting the coordinates within the tank, so that the fish does not hit the edge or go through the glass. I'll later need to add in some form of detection or collision so that the fish do not swim through each other, but that's for a later date. Now that we're all caught up, today I want to reduce the chance of the fish dashing to make the game feel a bit more relaxing and calm. The speed of the fish will change randomly, but not to such an extent, and the chance of the fish darting in a straight line will be very rare, aside from if it's darting to collect food or collect an item of some sort. The script I'm using right now is almost entirely placeholder and definitely not done the best way it can, but it works for now to see how the game will run and feel. Thanks for watching.